Hey there, Blaise here, and Jesus Christ, that's blurry. Well, you'll just have to deal with that, sorry. I'm going to change this. Yep, there we are. Now you don't have my big blurry face. So, what have I been doing? I wanted to just slowly walk you through this so that you'd see it all step by step. But, yeah, unfortunately, this proved to be, a bit tricky. So, what have I done since last time? I guess I've done a lot. Before, we had this bit of code. Um, if distance to ground plus velocity.y is greater than 0, and then if the distance to ground is greater than 0, return true, else return false. This was just if it's falling. And what this did was when we jumped, it would check sort of the position to like 0 actually. In fact, I don't think we had any of this distance to ground crap. No, we had a completely different system before, and I've changed it up so that we can add objects. So the objects all have box colliders on them. We got the ground object, we got platform, 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 platform. We even have a sloped platform. So this is like our little level. You can't see it because my face is in the way. There we are. So this is our level that I've made here. And let's just have a look at how we can move around. The camera follows the player, and you can jump around. I've even added double jumps, but you can't keep doing it, so you have one additional double jump. You can walk up and down the slope, and it does so fairly smoothly. Yeah, so we've almost got like a little platformer thing here. You can jump up through platforms. Of course, that's just because I only check for downward collisions so far. I'm sure adding upward collisions is going to be a whole other fun thing. I'll probably have to add another little raycast or something like that. Anyway, so let's walk you through how some of this works. It was actually very important to get the slope thing happening for jumping. See, this way you can smoothly go up and down the slope. This is achieved. You move left, and then it will check, oh, am I falling? Well, yeah, I'm falling, but I mean, how much am I really falling? And it hard codes a movement, and then it says, well, actually, I'm not falling at all. So that allows you to jump, and then double jump. So, that's all very neat. Let's go into the code. Righty. So what have we got here? We've got velocity, walk speed, gravity, jump power. That's all the same. I've got additional jumps and max jumps. So I could change max jumps to 2, and I'll change that to 2 while I'm at it. In this way, we've allowed a small edit to affect things. So that's 1, 2, 3. So now you've got triple jumps. I don't know, maybe you can find an item that when you pick it up you increase the number of jumps. Maybe you level up and you can choose whether or not you want to add to your jumps or to your movement speed or whatever. It's good to have some modularity. In the meantime, I'm going to change that to 1 because I feel like that's, double jump is fine, triple jump, yeah. Alright, so what have I got here? I've got a velocity x decay. Sort of doesn't matter too much because it cuts off pretty quickly with the decay. If it's less than 1.1, changes to 0 anyway. So I haven't touched any of this velocity stuff. If you've seen the previous video, that's, I guess, good news for you. Let's go through what I'm doing here. I've made it so that I add this gravity velocity within the isFalling function. Because the because I have the double jumps, I've had to create a bool that gets the return value of is falling. What I could possibly do is just create this as a variable up here, you know, is falling, and then set it every frame instead of declaring the variable. In fact, I might just quickly do that. And then say is falling. In this way, we only create the memory, we only allocate the memory once instead of every update. So, if it's falling, you know, if it's not falling rather, then we do all this, you know, we allow you to jump. If it is falling, but you have additional jumps, so additional jumps are greater than 0, then you can jump, but it takes your additional jumps down. Alright, neat. So what have I got here? This is sort of the main thing that allows you to do all of this stuff with game objects that have box colliders. So the player, what happens is the player shoots a physics raycast. So you need a raycast hit. Just create a float, distance to ground equals 0. If physics.raycast position minus vector3.up, so down, you create an output thing called hit, that's the raycast hit information, and you know, you shoot down 100. So if that, then distance to ground equals hit.distance minus 0.5. The reason we have this minus 0.5 is because the character is 1 unit and it shoots from the center. Now you could shoot from the bottom, you know, if you do transform.position, I believe, you know, minus a vector3 with 0.5 as y. You know, if I show you that real quick, minus u 3 0 5f 0. So if we have that, it should be above or below 0.5, and it'll be a bit weird. Ugh. So now I'm floating above the ground half a unit. So yeah, I could get rid of that. And it should be what, back to normal. But you see, that means that it's very dependent on landing. The problem with a lot of physics stuff with platformers is that you kind of always want to be touching. So let's go ahead and get rid of that. So we're sending it from the center, and then we offset the distance that we get by however much we need. Cool. I mean, this is of course just working with a basic cube model, which a lot of the time, if you're making a, you know what I'm talking about. If you're making a character, you typically end up with this sort of thing going on where they're about this high. So if it was this high, then you might want it to be -1, because it's 2 units high. There we go, we got our rectangular character. Ooh. Anyway, so that unit here is half the character's height because the Unity thing by default is in the center. So you might do it so that you have 3D models that you import where their feet are actually touching the ground. Then you wouldn't have to do that offset. But you know, you might want to do the raycast from the center of the player anyway for ease of use. Anyway, moving on. I have a whole bunch of if and else statements that help determine different things here. Right, so if distance to the ground is greater than 0. Now keep in mind that if you're like touching the ground, yeah, the thing should be about 0 if you're touching the ground, right? So you know, touching the ground. So if distance to ground is greater than 0, well, you must be in the air somewhere, right? So you're not touching the ground if distance to ground is greater than 0. So if velocity.y is less than 0, that means that you're falling down. So if you're falling downwards, all right, then if so from inside that, if we are falling downwards, okay, cool. If distance to ground plus velocity dot y is less than 0, as in, if we're falling down to the ground and within the next update, within the next movement, we're going to hit the ground, just hit the ground. And we do this because it prevents like a choppy frame rate. It prevents that little choppy bug. If we didn't do this, we would have to hit the ground inside the ground and then move back up a little bit, and that's crap. So it kind of snaps you to the ground, but it's mostly unnoticeable and it prevents a lot of other problems. So this is when you hit the ground. We move you the rest of the distance. We move the camera as well, which is, I'll go into that in a sec. We set the velocity to 0, and you get your maximum jumps again. Cool. Return false. So you're not falling. Downward slopes. This is kind of important. It allows us to move up and down a slope, and the reason that we need that is basically for the ability to jump from a slope while moving down the slope. So if the distance to the ground is less than 0.4, now that's pretty good, less than or equal to, whatever, you can probably just set it less than. And velocity.y is greater than minus 0.1. So basically, you're not falling a lot. If you're not falling a lot, then we'll snap you within this distance. Okay, so if you're walking down a slope, you'll only have that one tiny bit of movement from the single update frame. And then you'll add gravity, and then it'll go, well, gravity is tiny, it's like less than that. So you're moving down a slope. Like in action, what that does is this, right? Touching ground, down a slope, down a slope, down a slope, down a slope. You see, so that's what it does, and it's quite smooth. It's surprisingly smooth. Before I had the falling, I had to do something with falling. I added this gravity, right? Now, I had, if it is falling, then like add the gravity. And that didn't work. See, basically, if is falling. I know I'm doubling up, but I just want to show you this. See, when I do this function, it does all of this stuff. It does all of the stuff within that function, which is all to do with gravity and touching stuff from falling in particular. Now, when I check it, I return this bool, and I thought I was being really clever. And if I check it and I am falling, then I'll add the velocity. But that didn't account for the slopes. It didn't account for that. So observe the terrible jagged motion. In fact, now slopes just don't work, because when I fall, it's it just doesn't work. It doesn't work because it doesn't add that little bit of velocity. So adding the velocity within the is falling function managed to change some things, and this is basically to do with my if velocity.y is less than 0. So if it's less than 0, then you're falling, right? But before, it wasn't less than 0, it was 0. So anyway, I do have the down a slope thing working, and it's nice and it's good and it's wonderful. Down a slope. Sometimes these get a little confused and they think that they're down a slope because it does the same sort of within a certain range thing, but whatever, it's fine. It's fine. Now I can change this, if velocity.y is greater than 0, if you're moving upwards. This is if distance to ground is less than 0, or less than or equal to. Basically, if it's not greater than 0, then if velocity.y is greater than 0, you're moving upwards, well, you just went up through ground, and otherwise, I guess you're touching ground. Great. You know what, I could probably change this. Else, if velocity is less than yeah. So I probably only have to do this once. This is, again, in the future this might have repercussions. Oh, for God's sake. Else. Also return false. So anyway, I guess the fact that I'm adding gravity all the time probably doesn't help. So anyway, yeah, there's lots of cool stuff going on. Wonder what that'll do. There we are. See, has all these repercussions. You do anything, you can stuff stuff up. Anyway, I'm gonna change it back to the way it was. But yeah, there's lots of good stuff here, and it's not as elegant as the previous example that I showed you. But when you try to get modular, when you try to allow for, slopes, this is a bit of a hack, and you kind of have to do it if you want things to work smoothly. The ability to jump up through ground, I don't have to put that in there, but I did. Without that, without this just went up through ground thing, without this and this, I have to get rid of that. Without that, you jump up and you touch the ground. So it's like, oh cool, I'm touching the ground, I guess. So, whoa, that's not right, is it? That's weird. So it all depends on how you want to make your stuff work. But this is basically the thing that I like to do. I like refining little bits of code, and I like making gameplay feel a certain way. I kind of want to change this to 0.02 or something, or 0.05. I want to make it so that I have a more smooth movement. It's got to be, we must go deeper. At some point I'll fine tune this and it'll feel, like Super Meat Boy or something. And it'll be good. Because I know I've changed that. What if I change walk speed up to 20? Ooh. But I changed decay before. Oh wow. Yeah, that affects slopes significantly. Anyway, yeah, there's lots of things that you got to worry about. Yeah, I guess I could put walk speed averages into that. So if distance to ground is less than like walk speed times 0.05 f or something. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I accidentally pressed F5 or something and brought up the debugger. So, yeah, I guess you could do that. Look, going up and down the slope. Dependent on walk speed. Isn't that neat? That's cool. Except, did you see that movement just before? Yeah, it sort of clips a bit faster. But hey, I mean, if you're making like a Sonic game and you need this kind of tight movement that's based on, you know, crazy floating variables and stuff, you probably shouldn't use Unity because it's a piece of crap. Nah, did I just... Unity's fine. You just gotta tinker and figure out everything. You don't have super tight control over all of the variables and over all of the objects that you have in your scene. But this is what I've come up with. At some point I might put, you know, a Unity asset bundle or something up, just for free in the link or something. But until then, you'll just have to keep watching the occasional video and learning from there. So, just to recap, we have we've got additional jumps, maximum jumps. That's fairly simple to do. You just make it so that you check whether or not you're falling, and if you're falling but you have additional jumps, you can still get that input. In fact, you could. I might even restructure this code because it's doubling up on code. If is falling and additional jumps is greater than 0, oh, no. If not is falling. I don't know, that's kind of just the same thing. But it feels like it's neater, because now it always checks for whether or not you press the up arrow. And this way you can add other things to the up arrow. Well, I guess that's neat. Anyway, that's it for me today. I hope you've enjoyed watching my rambles and my mild confusion occasionally. We got double jumps, we got slopes, we got platforms. Oh my, you know, I could just duplicate platforms, what, 1 and 2? Duplicate them, make a bit of a staircase. You know, and that's sort of the wonder of Unity, is now we've got this thing that's really easy to add to. You know, you could really quickly design a level, add in some enemies or something, and you got a game. Anyway, maybe I'll do that next video. Anyway, that felt pretty. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time.